we're here. Hold on 1 second.
We will get started in 2 minutes.
And
Thank you for your patience.
no audio. Okay.
Testing, testing. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
The microphone is only for the
Speakers? All right.
You're gonna have to be loud.
Okay. You know, you're welcome to move down. There are chairs in the front. I would appreciate that so I don't lose my voice. Thank you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rabbi Dennis Math. Most importantly, I was a very, very good friend of Joyce's. Her loss is a big loss for all of us. She impacted so many people. I remember her office, which is right behind me here on West 12th Street. I remember going to St. Vincent's when Ari was born to visit Joyce and to meet Ari. So I have a long relationship with Joyce. She hosted me very beautifully in Ocean Grove several times. She was an active member of my synagogue, the Village Temple. She catered Passover Seders, all kinds of other events. She was a very active member. Joyce was a mensch, that's for sure. And as you know, in the 1980s, she was one of the first physicians to see HIV in the West Village. And she went out of her way to inhibit the spread of HIV. I remember that she hired a van and would go up and down West End Avenue giving out condoms to the prostitutes so they would not infect their clients, their Johns, and bring the virus back to their wives. She was noted. I think there was an article about her in New Yorker magazine. So again, she was a woman who made a real impact. She touched people's lives. She did more in her life than most people ever did. And Joyce had a very good time. She traveled a great deal. She cruised the world. She went on 100-day cruises, which is amazing. Amazing. She was a great cook. I remember her feeding me at her homes in the West Village, not far from here. And I remember, I think Julie remembers this, when my mother would come in to visit, she wasn't welcomed by my wife. So Joyce very graciously took her in. And my mother was a roommate of Joyce on several occasions for a short time. I will miss her very much. My sympathies to Julie and Ari, their children, and all who have come here this day. We are streaming this short service. Hopefully there's no technological difficulties. It will be streamed again. When, Ari? On demand. So keep that in mind. Esa enai el heharim meyayin yavo ezri ezri me'im Adonai oseh shemayim va'aretz al yiteng lamut raglecha v'al yanum shombrecha. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Whence shall come my help? My cup cometh from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See the protector of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protector at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul now and forever. In the rising of the sun and at its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we shall remember her. When we are weary in need of strength, we shall remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. As long as we live, she too shall live. For she is now a part of us, and we will always, always remember her. There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to reap and a time to sow, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grasp and a time to let go, a time to speak and a time to keep silence, a time to be born and a time to die. This then is a time to speak. I call upon her children. Who's going first? Ari and then Julie.
Thank you very much, Dennis. At the risk of being sacrilegious, I'd also like to say that when we eat Chinese food, we'll remember her. When we swim in the ocean, we'll remember her. And when we're late for an appointment, we'll remember her. I'm going to read on behalf of Moms good and longtime friend Barbara Reed. Barbara Reed is a saint and a wonderful person, so I will try to rise to the occasion. Let me adjust the mic. Is that possible? Great. The only people I have known longer, so this is from Barbara. The only people I have known longer are my siblings and a grade school friend I meet every so often, and friends from high school. I missed her this year. I miss her today. I will miss her tomorrow and next year. We are scheduled for a trip to Poland and the concentration camps, which I thought I could stay to visit if she was with me. We were to end up in Berlin, where I have never been, and I do not think she was keen to visit, except for my desire. We met the first day of medical school. She describes, in the story she would tell later, that a group of students went to lunch together, and I asked, after everyone ordered, why we had ordered meat. She reported askance at me and asked why I would ask that. She claimed I said because I thought everyone was Catholic. She told me after I said that she knew she had an unprejudiced classmate, and I was so naive she needed to protect me. We studied together some nights because I was studying less anxious for her, a calming influence. After she left for downstate, I would sometimes spend a weekend with her in Brooklyn. She would often have dinner for 12, performance. The next day a museum visit, a matinee, another dinner followed by some sort of performance. The following morning, leisurely breakfast followed by a museum park before I caught my train to Philadelphia. It was a wild ride. I did not recognize her as manic, even during this time. I thought this was Joyce, and this is the way she was and would be. I thought she was enthusiastic and energized about everything she thought was important. Friends, family, politics, race, medicine, simply everything. It made me sad for her when she went on the bipolar drugs and lost her manic episodes. But not the depression, making the drugs easy. It endeared her more to me. I've been trying to remember all the trips we made. Some with Julie. Joyce seemed to view foreign countries and cultures with different eyes than I had. She considered injustices. I'm trying to remember all the places in the world we visited. We would arrange to meet at a hotel or even the airport waiting for each other's flights. It always amazed me how well Joyce traveled, considering we were all looking for insulin once she forgot hers, or she lost her passport in Paris, and I was able to visit the consulate, which I would not have done on my own. And sidebar, they were nice to us, and I ended up witnessing a will signing for some expats. She could charm people, and they would help her. I remember a man she met on a plane to Mexico. He insisted we stay at a particular hotel and eat at a particular restaurant and arranged for a car to take us to the spa we were going to visit. It made Mexico perfect. We were once walking on a street when a very drunk man was arguing with a woman on the street. As we approached, he purposefully broke a bottle and started threatening her. I wanted to get away from this, but Joyce stood between him and the woman and told him that he did not really want to do that, and told her to get out of there. They both calmed down, and Joyce took his bottle, and we walked up on the street as if nothing had happened. I was shaking. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Julia, Joyce's daughter, and I am going to start by reading a poem, and you're going to be disappointed. You're going to think, that poem? Really? But trust me, we're going to come back. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And so now you think I'm going to talk about how my mom took the less traveled path in life, and boy did she, but that's not the theme. So you're going to have to wait for it. My mother, Dr. Joyce Wallace, was a pioneering AIDS doctor, creator of healthcare and housing for sex workers and drug-addicted homeless people. She did more than 99% of us. She is the best 1%. She made the world a better place. She gave better than she got. Joyce chose to help others at great, great economic cost to herself. I am particularly impressed by this because it's not like she was a live simply person with no taste for luxury. She was not a renunciate. She loved restaurants, travel, and a very, very nice kitchen cabinet. She could design a kitchen. And yet over and over she put her funds into helping others. She took an incredibly small salary at Frosted. God. She gave me a world that is better for women than the one she got. She was very smart, very, very smart. But her parents didn't have the cultural capital to support her intellect, nor were they early advocates for women. They were of the time. She said they didn't understand the education and opportunities she could have gotten from staying at Hunter College High School, a magnet high school she had tested into. And she felt out of her league at this high school. On the first day of class, the teachers asked the students to analyze a poem about, here you go, a guy in the woods with two roads. Oh, Mom wrote a poem about this poem. It was about a guy in the woods with two roads. And when the other students wrote life choices, she felt less than and unprepared. Her parents, Sam and Henrietta, had had a lot to deal with. Sam was often sick, and their youngest son, Lee, got cancer when he was 8 years old, and my mother was 12. Lee died a year later, and this was inspiration for my mother to be a doctor. When she got into college, she asked her parents for a doctor, and they gave her a charm bracelet. Supported my creative, gave better than she got. She was a doctor who healed so many, and yet she often felt so broken. She accomplished so much. She did so by being a cowboy, a rule breaker, a brilliant founder who worked for in Brooklyn 30 years before. Yet, she told me that she often felt like her slip was. It wasn't the slip that people were staring at. It was the way she saw the world. She saw people who exist, who clearly exist, but who are deemed invisible, expendable. She was able to see gay men without bias in 1975. She built a racially diverse organization and did so with intention. She talked to me about how you do this 35 years ago. She was the boy who said the emperor had no clothes, and boy did she love to make a joke about someone not wearing clothes. Bette Midler bought her life story, and it would have been perfect casting because only Bette could tell a risque joke better than my mom. The mom I had, before she became a bit more matronly when raising Ari, and he's going to have matronly stories for you, she threw amazing dinner parties with artists and intellects, Art Spiegelman, Mouse, Andrea Dworkin, many artists, and she organized this monthly nanny, which was joyous. She shined at these events, and making that were a mixture of brilliant and shocking. And there were always people living in our home, guests who taught me about the horrors of apartheid, or I'd wait for a stranger on the sofa. She was always sweet, always a street worker prostitute. This was after Mom was radicalized, but before she got funding to create housing. Who does that? Nobody brings home needy people to their home with their sleeping children and their jewelry. Dave better. She could see truth. These are people in need, and they aren't actually visible. But she could also see conflict where it wasn't. Insult when none need be taken. In her prime, she was always ready for a fight, and she gave. She felt like hell for custody suit. That was, well, hell for me. She was a contradiction, and she was contradictory. In fact, she was contradictory. She could be enraging. Case, I think, by a rage justice, and sometimes she was just too rageful. And I wrote most of the eulogies my mother gave about her brother, her parents, because her first response to grief wasn't loss. Her first response to loss was murder. Like literally, her draft eulogy was naming everyone and how they failed her brother, and that led to death. And I would explain to her that this wasn't the time to write her eulogy. I wrote 3 eulogies for her brother. And I am so glad to feel any rage in this eulogy. She gave better than she got. In her last years, she became less vulnerable to rage and regret, resentment. She built wonderful relationships with her grandchildren, and she had wonderful times with her friends. She loved babysitting for Yoni and Hannah, and the photos are so cute of them all dressed up in her jewelry. She had a lovely relationship with her son. They deeply enjoyed each other, and she was very excited that he was going to spend January living with her, this January. And I don't know what lit the fires inside my mom, but it was relieving to see how they became tamer in her last few years. We would talk on the phone during COVID, and she was just grateful. She was nice. I think that she got time with Ari and Joe and the kids up in the country, and they tell stories of her just having a wonderful time with the kids, and the kids calling it Camp Joyce, and having she projects for them. She just became okay. In the end, she got what she gave. She got self-acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I'm going to speak as myself now, so perhaps less. All folks, if they want to speak, there's an opportunity between now and when Dennis, my math, does. Thank you for all your kind condolences and concern for my sister, children, and me. I'm grateful for my friends and family. Your love during this period and always has given us so much solace. I also take solace in my mom's end and how little she suffered or feared given her lifelong aversion to death, an understandable aversion. I'm so grateful that I could be there with her in the ambulance, that she didn't linger, and that she was taken by surprise. Best I could tell, she was stoically experiencing this hospital visit as the latest necessary medical intervention that would keep her with all of us. Reached out, surprised that she was sick, having spoken to her even just a few days ago. Was that she had diabetes, heart disease, and enough stents. The next one was going to be on the house. This, she willed herself a quality of life far beyond what her body should have been able to deliver. The grit she had her whole life, evident even in her last year and hours. She had grit, Of course, she lived as many mothers do, for spending time with her 4 grandchildren. She went upstate for summer and put on Camp Joyce. That's you. Joyce was a professional Girl Scout, and the kids have enough tie and beads to start following the Grateful Dead. Between friends, the grandchildren, she infinitely do, and a lot of bridge. Her last year was sanguine. It's no mean feat given 2020. Her retirement, but as a doctor and activist, being Dr. Joyce Wallace. She liked intellectual detective work, the regard she got from the people she helped. She got her overcoming familial, cultural, and class barriers. I don't recall how many other women downstate the specific struggles she faced as a young internist. I can only say there were many glass ceilings and plenty of flesh wounds from breaking them. My youngest memories of her as a doctor are from this block. In the late 70s to mid 1980s, her office was right over there. Mom would sometimes greet me. We'll edit him out later. Mom would sometimes greet me in preschool class walking by on a neighborhood trip. Either she or somebody at her office would fetch me from Buckle My Shoe in the afternoon and bring me to her office. Her office had a centrifuge. That centrifuge might have been the first piece of technology I fancied, because I remember experiments with Mom or her nurse separating a homogeneous mix of sugar and water. Hannah, I'm sorry to say that the sugar was ruined and we couldn't eat it. Last week at the park, I asked Mom if doctors still have centrifuges in their office. With bluster, she said, "Well, they should. How else can you quickly diagnose anemia?" I don't know the answer to that. A story you can go to lunch on is how she saved a patient from irreversible lead poisoning. This is from an Annals of Medicine column in The New Yorker, circa 1983 or so. In 1979, Laura McBride consulted Dr. Joyce Wallace, an internist on West 12th Street. The patient was an art conservator, and for the past 3 weeks she'd been having pain, tiredness, and other symptoms. She was a widow with 3 teenage daughters. Her hemoglobin levels were low and dropping, and she got sicker. Looking at her blood cells under the microscope, Dr. Wallace noticed stippling, which suggests toxicity. She thought, this woman works in art. Art materials are chemicals, paint, lead poisoning. She called the Department of Health and said she had a case of suspected lead poisoning. She used these same analytical skills to help identify AIDS, which was initially called GRIDS as a stigma for already marginalized gay men. She was one of the first to sound the alarm about young men getting a strange skin cancer, Kaposi sarcoma, and say, this isn't right. These young, healthy men shouldn't be getting this disease. Surely she was quick to the diagnosis because she was a good doctor. But she was a good doctor because of her radical empathy. She didn't judge being gay, a shamefully uncommon position at the time. Her deepest sympathy extended to her patients dying of AIDS. I'm grateful she hired Russ, one of her AIDS. I remember Russ coming back to visit me as he was dying, and him, with a cane and buying me a toy space shuttle from Woolworths. We couldn't disease. I remember gaping on 7th Avenue, cursing a former friend who ignored him, and him turning to me with terror and rage and cursing me out too. This neighborhood was haunted by the despair of young men and their loved ones, and unburdened by the heroism of my mom the nuns at St. Vincent's, and many others who were called to action. If gay men were underdogs then, you can imagine how society viewed street-walking prostitutes. My mom started looking for AIDS in women and started testing the prostitutes who used to do tricks on 11th Avenue. Working with prostitutes triggered Mom's empathy reflex, and she started a foundation that offered them a growing number of services and second chances. She did it with empathy, but also toughness and scorn for the naysayers. The condoms, showers, and methadone my mom and her colleagues provided made thousands of women safer. I encourage you to read the New Yorker profile of Mom, Mike Billings shared in the Kudo board, for the particulars. I'll add a story that if David Remnick had included, would have caused a Child Protective Services investigation. When I was 10 or so, my mom came home with a prostitute who was withdrawing from heroin. The woman wanted help that wasn't available. The drug treatment facilities didn't have room. The inn was full. Mom gave the woman some methadone and then told her to sit tight until a drug treatment facility would take her that night or the following day. Then, Mom went to the hospital to do rounds, leaving me with this woman and both of us without dinner. What was I supposed to do? Did I have to guard my mom's office so the woman wouldn't steal medicine? Did I have to worry about this woman's pimp coming to the house? My fears were unfounded, and my mother's irresponsibility rewarded. The story didn't end in violence or trauma. It ended with me making a Boboli pizza. And that woman getting clean and working for my mom's foundation. I was not as fearless as my mom. That wasn't a comfortable experience for me. But I'm forever grateful she broadened my horizons. She also broadened my horizons in more conventional ways. Mom took Julia and me on big adventures, all the more notable, because they were a radical departure from what she knew as a child. I accompanied her on AIDS conferences in Europe and Africa. She pulled me from school so I could. As we took the QE2 on an English crossing, I can tell my Titanic-obsessed children that modern cruise ships travel at about the same speed as boats did 70 years earlier. She put me in schools that taught and coddled me, a nice compliment to a childhood that otherwise mixed pizza and prostitution. I was exposed to a lot. Her stoic work, her sometimes righteous, sometimes crazy scorn, brilliance, and her inconsideration. A friend of my mom's and I spent my bar mitzvah morning setting all the house clocks 30 minutes fast so my mom would only be 40 minutes late. Dennis, I recall you doing some great crowd calming then, so thank you. I suspect the lack of punctuality and other memories resonate with many of you because we all got all of Joyce. Yet you remained her friends and stayed loyal to her, appreciating her love of life, fierce commitments, and generosity. She needed that friendship, and I'm so thankful that you gave it to her. Thank you very much.
I remember when I was in trouble years ago, Joyce was at my side, not just literally, but physically, helping me through it. I will miss her sparkling blue eyes so very, very much. I remember your bar mitzvah on the party on that ship, which was a lot of fun. All right. Would anybody else like to say a few words about dear Joyce? Yes.
Hi. I'm Liz Ryan. That's my window, the white frame on my window. So I've moved in there in 1966 into to a rent stabilized apartment in the village. There is a God, and I used to go down to Joyce, and she said, I think you're manic depressive, and I walked out pissed as hell until I got Zoloft, and then I surrendered. But I take pictures, and so if somebody will give me an email address, I'll send you all the pictures of everybody. I'm not, and I'm grateful. The last time I saw her was as at a concert on about 29th Street. A friend of mine runs the choir on 29th Street and 9th Avenue, and I said, how? She said, I'm traveling. I've been to 47 countries in the last 5 minutes or something like that. But she was having a wonderful time. So I'm so grateful to Sylvia, whom I've known forever, for telling me about it. And thank you, Joyce. Thank you.
You know my friend Harriet Zimmer?
Harry Zimmer, was he
Harriet,
the doctor?
No, yes, he was the
He
doctor.
was the doctor before
Joyce.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
his wife still lives here.
Really?
Harriet, she's over 100. She lives on the first floor. Okay. Does anybody else have something to say? Good. Thank you.
I look different. My skin look different. I don't remember how long I know Joyce, but I'm her daughter. I'm her daughter because I don't know my mother. I met my mother like maybe 3 years ago at my grandmother's funeral. So Joyce been a mother to me. Probably like, I don't know how long I know Harriet, maybe like 15, 16 years. So I did stuff to Joyce what her kids didn't do to her. I yell at Joyce. I yell at Joyce on Tuesday because when Lila called me and said, I didn't call, text, because I was walking out of NYU because I went to do treatment on Thursday. I called Joyce on Tuesday, FaceTime, because what I do to Joyce that her kids don't do, I call her FaceTime on Tuesday, and when I don't get her, I call her house phone. Because if she's sleeping during the day and I don't get her, I get upset, because I say night I make for sleeping, not during the day. So when I didn't get her on Tuesday, I called her house phone. I said, Joyce, it's after 6 o'clock, what are you doing? She said, I'm making soup. I said, don't make a big pot. She said, I'm not making a big pot, Renelle. Look, I'm just making a small pot of soup. I'm going to say stuff that I don't really care because she's not here right now. She was a doctor. And because I have health issues, I would call her about everything. I said, I'm calling to tell you that I'm going for because I'm so scared about stuff. I said, I'm calling to tell you that I'm going for my migraine treatment. She said, calm down, it's going to be okay. And this was Tuesday. And my treatment was Thursday. So I didn't call her on Wednesday. I call her for every shit. I'm sorry about my words. Last week Saturday, like I said, when I want to see her, I call her FaceTime. Last week Saturday, when my doctor called me because I have health issues, like I said, I call her and say, oh Joyce, guess what? My doctor called. I have issues in my breast. I have to go to Kings County to do it over, but my pelvic is okay. And she said, oh, I told you not to worry. I said, but Joyce, my stomach is getting so fat, I think I have cancer in it. And she said, Renee, stop it. If your breast is because of your stomach is so fat, and you think you have cancer, the amount of people in the world who have cancer, how much people would have been dead? You need to calm down. Who am I gonna call now to complain to? I have the rash in my face. I called Joyce. This rash keep coming on my face. I called Joyce about everything because I don't have anybody else to call. Harry is gone. Kids gone. Everybody's gone. I sure her kids don't call us. I called Joyce on Tuesday because I have trouble with my children and my period. I was surprised when I called her. Her kids going mad. I'm mad. She gets so excited about the cars. I cut from Brooklyn to go to a car with her. The tomato tree have one tomato at least. Brooklyn to come to see one tomato on the tree.
That's very beautiful. Very beautiful. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll all miss her. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Sylvia Netzer. I live up the block. I was Joyce's patient across the street and down the street. She was the easiest doctor to talk to. And she diagnosed me with hay fever. She was unfailingly kind and truthful about my obesity. In later years, I knew her more as a friend through my friend Karen Yeager, who is supposed to be here, but I guess is a little sick with her coughing. Anyway, I remember Ari as a little boy around the time he was bar mitzvahed, and I feel very honored to have known Joyce and to have known her as a beacon in the neighborhood. And this neighborhood in the 1980s was very, 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 very sad because of AIDS. Thank you.
Thank you. Else briefly, or not so briefly. Okay. Yes.
Hi, I'm James, good friend of Ari and Joanna's, and I'm just here because we have a very close group of friends from college, and I'm here in person because many people can't be here today. So I'm just here to represent them and say what a wonderful, larger-than-life personality Joyce was throughout our whole life. We've all known Ari for 22 years at this point, and Joyce was always unique and special and a source of incredible laughter and humor for us, but also someone who was always present right in Chelsea. Our friend stayed with her many times. Her house was a home to many of us, just like she was to so many people who needed it in this city. So I'm just here to say that there's no better legacy you leave than your children, and that Ari is a wonderful person. Julie, I don't know you as well, but we're very fortunate to have Ari's love and the compassion that he shares for all of his friends in the way I know his mother did.
El Mola Amim, Shochem Vamramim, Hamse Menucha Tachat Kanfei Shechina. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest to the soul of Dr. Joyce Wallace, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring her into your presence, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou her possession, and may she always, always rest in peace. Let us all say amen. Those of you who are able are welcome to rise for the Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'olma divara kirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei chon uv'yimei chon uv'chayei l'kol beit Yisrael, v'yagula v'zman karev v'imaru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam uramei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitparar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei l'kudisho brichu le'elom in kol brechata v'shirata tushbachata v'nehemata gamiran be'alma v'imaru. Amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imaru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imaru. Amen. For the source of peace, send peace to all of us. May God grant peace to Ari and Julie and their loved ones, children, spouses. We are all a bit diminished because of our collective loss. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May God lift up his spirit to us all and grant to us God's most gracious blessing. May we live more differently because of the way Joyce touched us. May we bring Joyce into our lives and live life a little bit more zestfully. She was a woman of so much zeal and zest. Let us all say amen. Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Just in conclusion, there will be details on a memorial Zoom that we'll all be able to participate in next Sunday afternoon. That's on the kudos board. Also on the kudos board is foundation, nonprofits or donations that you can give in Joyce's honor if you are so moved. Thanks, everybody, for being here and with us online and in person. Bye.